Hi, I'm Jade. I'm the author of Fate's Tether, and this is my recap of weeks 3 and 4 of The Artist's Way. So week 3 is about recovering a sense of power, and the first section that she talks about is anger, and that felt really relevant because going from week 2 to week 3, I was experiencing just a lot of anger about everything, and I was constantly really frustrated. I was having like mini meltdowns every single day. I was throwing little tantrums. I was feeling stuck and frustrated and overwhelmed, and I felt like nothing was going my way. There was just a lot of noise and a lot of chaos and just so much happening. So it felt only right that week 3 starts off with anger. She talks about how anger is fuel, and we often do everything but listen to it. And it was just kind of like, it felt like this never-ending battle where I just continued to be really angry and really upset, and not being able to work through it, and not being able to get myself to do any writing or to do anything creative because I was just stuck and I was blocked and I was angry, and I also wasn't having the time either. And so it was just this back and forth between I'm not doing enough and then being really mad that I'm not doing enough, and yeah, just tossing myself back and forth between those two feelings. And how I got through it was I had a really great conversation with my husband where we just talked about things, and I weirdly came to a realization that what I was mad about the entire time was just this fear that I wasn't going to be able to do I wasn't going to be able to finish my book and do a good job. A good sign is, though, she says, in the recovery of a blocked artist, anger is a sign of health. So she says, when we feel anger, we are often very angry that we feel anger. It tells us we can't get away with our old life any longer. Anger is a firestorm that signals the death of our old life. Anger is the fuel that propels us into our new one. Anger is our friend, not a nice friend, not a gentle friend, but a very loyal friend. Anger is not the action itself, it's the action's invitation. So that also really helped me work through a lot of my anger, because I was starting to realize that what was happening was just that I am, like I said, there was just so much going on. There was so much like noise and chaos that I couldn't really focus. And so I was just starting to realize that like the problem is that I don't like where I am currently. Like I feel stuck. I feel like I am meant for bigger and better things, and yet here I am trapped and stuck and not able to do the things that I want to commit myself to, and the things that like light me on fire, and the things that like make me have a reason to like get out of bed every single day and like do something, you know, with my life, and to push for more and to desire more. And so yeah, I think that anger was just, like she said, a sign, potentially a healthy sign of a healing artist that doesn't want to say no to the creative part of me anymore, that doesn't want to spend so much time giving and not getting enough, and not creating enough. So yeah. She also talks about synchronicity. So she talks about answered prayers and things aligning for you and going well and working out for you. I was really irritated at the time because I read this at the beginning of the week of week 3, and I was again going through my hailstorm of chaos, and I was waiting for the synchronicity, and I felt like I wasn't getting any, when normally I'm kind of a spiritual person, and so I've always felt like I get like signs from the universe, and like things are working out, that things are going to get better, or things like that, and I wasn't getting any. And so I was really frustrated because I was like, now I'm finally doing this, I'm doing the artist's way, there's all these blockages, all these things, like I'm supposed to be focusing on being creative, and now that I can do nothing but like sit here and think about how badly I want to be creative, and I wasn't getting any signs. That being said, the day rolled around on Friday where it was going to be that I needed to make a decision on whether I was going to do my next event that's coming up here in May, if I was going to have the money to buy the books for it. And it came out that no, I wasn't. And I sat down and I was like, it's more proof that like things aren't working out, and it was like more fuel to the anger. And then I sat there and I wrote in my journal, and I was like, no, it's going to work out. And I said, I'm just going to have faith. I'm just going to walk with complete and utter faith that things are going to go exactly how they're supposed to, and I'm just going to believe it. There's no other option. I said, I refuse to believe that I'm not going to this event. I said, I'm going. So the universe is going to have to figure out how the books get there with me, because I'm going. And the very next day, we had a tax appointment. I'm not going to get too into details about that, but we basically were expecting to either have a very low refund or to owe some money based off of another person that we attempted to do our taxes through. But my dad was like, no, go through my tax guy. He's a really good guy. He's going to help you. Well, it turns out he had a lot of questions for me about like being an author and all of my costs and stuff like that. And we ended up getting a good enough refund that I was absolutely able to get my books. And so now I'm going to that event. So things just started aligning and falling into place. And so I would call that a synchronicity. I would say that that was things working out in my favor. The next thing that she talks about is shame. This was a really, really important part for me because I think where I was during week 3, which is crazy because I feel like I'm in a completely different place now at the end of week 4. But I would say that at the time I was really struggling still with getting criticism and getting negative reviews because I've gotten a few and I've gotten some that weren't necessarily negative but weren't stellar, that still kind of hurt my feelings, just like little things that weren't necessarily what I needed to be paying attention to, but that were still garnering pieces of my attention and still harboring like darkness inside of my brain and telling me that things are going to go wrong. But yeah, so she says, I'm just going to read a couple sections, small sections from here, just because I think that they really speak to what I was feeling. So she says, shaming someone is an attempt to prevent the person from behaving in a way that embarrasses us. The act of making art exposes a society to itself. Art brings things to light. It illuminates us. It sheds our light on lingering darkness. When people do not want to see something, they get mad at the one who shows them. Art opens the closets, airs out the cellars and attics. It brings healing. Bad reviews are a prime source of shame for many artists. The truth is, many reviews do aim at creating a sense of shame in an artist. We don't make art with its eventual criticism foremost in mind, but criticism that asks a question like, how could you, can make an artist feel like a shamed child. A well-meaning friend who constructively criticizes a beginning writer may very well end that writer. The criticism that damages is that which disparages, dismisses, ridicules, or condemns. It is frequently vicious but vague and difficult to refute. This is the criticism that damages. Shamed by such criticism, an artist may become blocked or stop sending work out into the world. And then she says that as artists, we have to learn to be very self-protective. And she goes on to say, a first draft is seldom appropriately shown to any but the most gentle and discerning eye. It often takes another artist to see the embryonic work that is trying to sprout. The inexperienced or harsh critical eye, instead of nurturing the shoot of art into being, may shoot it down instead. As artists, we cannot control all the criticism we will receive, but we can learn to comfort our artist child over unfair criticism. We can learn to find friends with whom we can safely vent our pain. We can learn to not deny and stuff our feelings when we have been artistically savaged. And so all of that really spoke to me because I think that it's true that a lot of criticism is often very vague. It's not often constructive. And I think a lot of times people will say the first mean thing that comes to their mind without necessarily meaning to be mean. I just don't think people are necessarily as careful with their criticism as, like she says, a blossoming artist might need. So that is a sign for you that if you are on your writing journey and you're starting out, or maybe you've been on your writing journey, that be careful with who you share your work with, and know that if you do share it with someone that you think it's going to treat it as gently as you treat your work, and they don't, it's okay to just not take their criticism, and it's okay to just trust yourself and trust what you feel instead. Then she goes on to say that the only way to deal with criticism, especially like harsh criticism that hurts us, is to heal from it. That's literally the only thing that you can do with it. So to know whether criticism you should accept it or not, she says, it leaves us with feeling of being bludgeoned. As a rule, it is withering and shaming in tone, ambiguous in content, personal, inaccurate, or blanket in its condemnations. There is nothing to be gleaned from irresponsible criticism. And she also goes on to say that, remember, even if you have made a truly rotten piece of art, it may be a necessary stepping stone to your next work. Art matures spasmodically and requires ugly duckling growth stages. So when I was writing Fate's Tether, I would often wonder if what I was doing was good, if it was a good enough book to ever publish. And a lot of people have come to me and they ask me, like, how did you go from like writing a book to just like full force publishing it? I want to say in part because I had a Kickstarter and I was like, oh my God, I took people's money. Like I gotta finish the book. But also partially because I was like, it's gonna be my first book anyway. Like I'm gonna, no matter what, this is my first book, and I've written it, and I'm gonna do it, and I'm going to put it out there because it is a stepping stone to better work. And who knows, like to some people, the idea that like they could look at your first book and be like, this is horrible, I didn't like it, and I'm never gonna pick up anything by this author ever again, is like really, really scary. And I think what's sometimes even scarier than that is the idea that like people may read your 10th or 12th book and they go, this is amazing, this is the best book I've ever read, and then they go, how is this like her first book? This is like embarrassing, this is like ugh, you know what I mean? And I don't see it that way, because I think I see it more as an evolution of sorts. And I think that we can't always be ashamed of everything that's in our portfolio when it comes from the very beginning. And so I decided to just go for it and put it out there and use it as a learning and growing experience. And also it's doing something. It's not just sitting on my computer, it's doing something. It's in the world, I'm selling it, I'm getting art for it, people are learning about it every day. And every day I am glad that I made the decision to publish it, even if I have had moments of doubt where I wonder if it was a good book, or if I've been trying to promote and talk people into buying what is essentially a bad book. And maybe I am, but that has no bearing on my future ability to create a very good book. So I just put it out there. This week's tasks were really focused on a lot about your childhood, or my childhood, I suppose. And so one of the ones was describe your childhood home, describe 5 traits you liked in yourself as a child. For example, one of mine was that I was pretty imaginative and silly. I think until I met my husband, I had lost the silly, I had lost the whimsy. So that was something that I really admired about myself as a child. And then there's another section where it was 5 childhood accomplishments and 5 favorite foods from childhood. It was really hard to come up with 5 accomplishments. Weirdly, as someone who was like academically quite successful, feeling like that was like not enough to be like, well, I always got good grades, so it wasn't easy to put good grades on there. And yeah, so I didn't do sports or anything like that. But one of them was that I won a young writers competition, so I put that there. And then it was talking about listing obvious bad habits and then subtle bad habits. So like an obvious one is that I spend a long time doom scrolling on my phone. A subtle one, spending time at my desk when I'm having bad feelings. Like if I'm stressed, why am I sitting at my desk? This is supposed to be my retreat. I'm supposed to be here to be having fun and to be writing, and I'm sitting here stressing. That doesn't sound conducive. So I realized that that's a habit that I need to break. Oh, and then it asked you to make a list of friends who nurture you. I listed 3 of my friends here. I have many, many more, but these were just like the first 3 that popped into my mind that were especially relevant during week 3. My friend Stevie, my friend CK, and my friend Olga, all 3 of them are really amazing ladies, and they help me a lot when I'm feeling stressed or low or need someone to hype me up a little bit. So I think it was nice to balance like talking about your childhood with like, and who do you have now that like actually supports you? There was also a section where you list 5 people you admire and their traits that you want to cultivate in yourself, and then 5 people you secretly admire. What I thought was really interesting about the people that I chose is that once I was listing their traits and what I admired them for, I realized I kind of admire almost all of them for the same thing, which is discipline, dedication, confidence, and intentionality, and creativity, and just being very authentic and outspoken. That basically describes every single person that I wrote down. There's another section that's really fun. It was buried dreams, and it said list out 5 fun hobbies, 5 classes that sound fun, 5 things I would never do that sound fun, 5 fun skills to have, 5 things I used to enjoy doing, and 5 silly things that I'd like to do just once. For example, some classes that sound fun would be like a hip-hop dance class. Things I would never do that sound fun. Diving with sharks. Sounds really cool. Couldn't get me in the water. I'm terrified of the ocean. 5 fun skills to have. Yo-yoing. I'm just going to leave you with that. 5 fun things you used to enjoy doing. Recording videos like I am now. When I was young, I used to do this a lot. I had like a giant, because you know, technology, I used to have a giant camera because my parents gave me an old one and it had tape, and I had to re-record over the tape all the time. They had a little tiny cassette tape, and I only had one. And yeah, and I would record a video like an hour and 30 minutes until it ran out of tape, and then I would watch it back, be really proud of myself, erase it, and do it all over again. So for just a total recap of week 3, as for my morning pages, I think it went really well in week 3. It was really helping me work through a lot of the anger and noise that was happening, so that was good. I did not do my artist date because, like I said, there was just so much going on. I did feel a little bit sad about it though, I'm not gonna lie. At first I thought the artist date was gonna be something that I would try to avoid with my whole heart, but it only took one for me to be like, this is actually kind of good for me, I like this. So yeah. Did you experience any synchronicity? I talked about this a little bit earlier, but another synchronicity that I want to mention is that at least once a day, the Artist Way, like the actual cover, not just someone talking about it, this will appear in some way, shape, or form. Sometimes it's on an ad, sometimes it's on different apps. Like, it doesn't matter what app I'm on, it appears somewhere, some way, each day. And I've come to expect it at this point. So that's another synchronicity. Okay, now let's talk about week 4. Week 4 is recovering a sense of integrity, and she starts off with talking about honest changes, and that at the root of a successful creative recovery is the commitment to puncture our denial, stop saying it's okay when it's in fact something else, and basically just not denying the way that you feel anymore. And she talks about how the morning pages realign our values, and if we are to the left or right of our personal truth, the pages will point out the need for a course adjustment. And she also goes on to say that in order to have self-expression, we must first have a self to express, and that through your morning pages, you're kind of coming home to yourself, like getting through the noise of your own brain and all the like thoughts that come from fears, and that come from past experiences, and that come from the future, and that come from people in your life, and just finding a way to center yourself among all of that and remember who you are. And I think what's really important is that she goes on to mention that as we discover these like boundaries, we are going to change no matter what. Like, as we discover ourselves, we are going to like find these limits in ourselves and find out like the edges and the corners of who we are. And as we do that, we are like changing, and that change can be jarring to other people as well. So she talks about how art lies in the moment of encounter. We meet our truth and we meet ourselves. We meet ourselves and we meet our self-expression. We become original because we become something specific, an origin from which work flows. As we gain or regain our creative identity, we lose the false self we were sustaining. This loss of false self can feel traumatic. I don't know who I am anymore. I don't recognize me. And then she talks about how shifts in taste and perception accompany shifts in identity, so that we start to sort through and discard old papers, clothes, and belongings. That was very true for me this week, and I'll talk about that more in a minute. That by tossing out the old and unworkable, we are making room for the new and the suitable. And then after we do that, we often have this like very like slow pace where you're just making a little bit of work, a little bit of work, a little bit of work, and then you start making huge jumps, and you almost don't even notice it because you're still focused on like taking those little steps and those little steps, and you're not aware of how rapidly you are accelerating through your growth. And she says your dreams will become stronger and clearer both by night and by day. She says your tastes and judgments and personal identity will begin to show through, and you'll find yourself saying things like, I don't like that. You will have noticed an increased, sometimes disconcerting sense of personal energy, some bursts of anger, some flashpoints of clarity. People and objects may have taken on different meaning to you. There will be a sense of flow of life, that you are brought into new vistas as you surrender to moving with the flow of God. You are no longer stuck, but you cannot tell where you are going. You may feel that this can't keep up. You may long for a time where there was no sense of possibility, when you felt more victimized, when you didn't realize how many small things you could do to improve your own life. It is normal to yearn for some rest when you are moving so rapidly. What you will learn to do is rest in motion, like lying down on a boat. Your morning pages are your boat, and they will both lead you forward and give you a place to recuperate from your forward motion. And the other big part of this week was the reading deprivation, which I made into a media deprivation just because I don't read quite enough for me to feel like I was going to get the full benefits out of just not reading, because sometimes I just go a week without reading. So I decided to do a social media deprivation. I wasn't going to watch any TV shows either, and I wasn't going to play any video games. Basically, I wasn't going to consume the creativity or the content of other people, and I was just going to like sit with my thoughts. Terrifying, I know. And it was horrifying and horrible, and I probably would do it again. The first day was the hardest. I kept picking up my phone and just immediately forgetting that I had decided to do this. So yeah, that was the biggest thing in trying to like find what to do with myself when I couldn't be on my phone. I was getting very agitated because I wanted to check it really badly, and I was getting agitated not because I couldn't check it, because that was actually not as bothersome as I thought it would be, but more irritated with myself that I wanted to check it that badly, that it was like, that it kept occurring and kept popping up in my head so frequently. I never realized like how often I reach for my phone. I think on the first day I ended up cleaning out my closet because one of the tasks was like create like a small space for yourself that's not your office, and it's just like a little space where you can like write, you know, on a notebook or whatever by yourself. And so I did that. I made my closet, because it's a little walk-in closet, so I cleaned it out, got it all nice, and put a little chair in there and made a little altar with some like little candles, and yeah, I did the thing. That was the first thing that I did. On the second day, I made an impromptu trip to Home Depot, which ended up being my artist date, and I went and I picked out all the supplies that I needed to have in order to do sprayed edges. So yeah, I went and I got spray paint, and I got clamps, and yeah, I got all the supplies that I needed to do sprayed edges. And I think because I was so bored, so I started practicing, and that's what I came up with. So I don't know. She says in here that people really resist doing the reading deprivation, and people often don't like her when it's time for this week, she says. But she also mentions, I will tell you that those who have resisted it most come back the most smugly rewarded for having done it. I was really resistant, and I was telling myself, I almost got to a point where I was like, I'm just not going to do it. Because I was like, it's too hard, and I'm going through so much, and there's just so much craziness, and I just want to be on my phone. But I decided not to. And I got off my phone, and it paid off. My closet is clean. These are gorgeous. So what was I so worried about? I also find that I'm not reaching for my phone as much as I used to. I do think in some way it broke something inside of me, to where I'm not as like iron gripped on that phone anymore. As for the tasks this week, there were some really cute ones. There was one where you describe yourself at 80. What do you do after 50 that you enjoyed, and write a letter to yourself? I just like to read my little letter to 80-year-old me. So I said, Dear 80-year-old me, hey girl, you rock and you're beautiful, and I hope you're so, so proud of everything you've accomplished. Thank you for never giving up, and I hope you have lots of fun even at 80 years old. I hope you remind people of the important things like love and laughter, and I hope you create art from now until the very end. I hope you create freely with reckless abandon, without a care in the world who sees. I hope you dance and eat and sing, and I think you know what a good job you've done, and I think you're still enjoying the fruits of our labor. I love you, girl. Have fun until the very end. Love, 28-year-old me. Then there's one where you write a letter to the 8-year-old version of you. So I said, Dear 8-year-old me, I am really proud of you. I know it's not easy, and I know you don't fit in very well, but you're so bright and talented and kind and funny and social, and you see the best in everyone, and you believe in doing what's right. One day we'll find people who understand us, that like how silly and weird we are. Don't stress about school or friends or mom and dad or about who you are, because there's nothing wrong with who you are, and you make it no matter what happens. Love me. Yeah, so for the final wrap up, the morning pages were a struggle this week. Often this week I found myself not doing them in the morning and getting them done sometimes at nighttime, like right before I go to bed, like finishing right before, and it was not good. I noticed that my brain felt a lot more all over the place throughout the day, and I think that these really do help ground me in the morning. So I'm really going to try to be a little bit stricter on getting them done in the morning. I already talked about my artist date and about how I went on it, but one thing I didn't mention is that because there was spray paint, I got to have fun with paint, and I've never considered myself to be a very like artistic person in the sense of like painting or drawing or sculpting or any of those things. And yeah, so I've just always been like, that's not for me. I'm not good at that kind of thing. But for it to have gone well and for me to have had so much fun with the paint was kind of like a little revelation for me. So that was really nice. And then it said, did you experience any synchronicity this week? Yes, I made a very big decision. I'm not going to get too big into it, but I basically had to make a decision that other people might not have agreed with, like my parents, in favor of my dream. I was taking a chance on myself, and I was like, do I pay for the thing that I should pay for, or do I pay for my books? And I took a chance on me, and I was basically like, this is fine. Like, the universe sees me, the universe understands me, and the universe wants me to take this leap of faith. And yeah, I ended up getting like a message that was basically in support of that. That was basically what I was thinking and what I was feeling, and just having that reflected back at me, essentially, which was really great. And so it felt like life was telling me that it was good to have taken that chance on me. Yeah, and I think that is weeks 3 and 4. I'm looking forward to weeks 5 and 6, and catch you then.